na Sarah. What does employee engagement mean to you? And why is it critical or crucial for organization success? Employee engagement.
Thank you very much. I think that question, as much as it comes to me, I would definitely ask the audience also to ask themselves this question. For sure, an employee engagement, what it means to me, it's an emotional commitment, a dedication that an employee normally showcase towards an organization and its goals. It encompasses the enthusiasm, the motivation, the alignment with the company values, the mission and vision of the organization. So that's what employee engagement means to me. It's critical to the organization because it influences productivity. This employee is well engaged, highly motivated. Most definitely, it will bring us a positive outcome in our workplace. The quality of work will increase. Absenteeism will reduce. And the turnover in terms of retention of staff will be, very low within the organization. So the impact overall will be very positive. An employee who is well engaged must be able to be more productive, increase in quality, excited about work, and most of the time they become great ambassadors of the organization. They are the ones who goes out and tell about the organizations, its values, its mission, and the work that we all have in our organization and companies. So for all of us as HR practitioners in the places that we work, we must ensure that we have employees who are well engaged, or otherwise we won't have the results that we are looking for in an organization.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Let me go to Glory. Before I go to my question, Vega wanafanya nini?
Vega ni engineering company. Tuna import industrial spare parts na pia tunafanya services kwenye viwanda hususan vya simenti. Tunafanya electrical mechanical services. Yeah.
Okay. So back to the question, what strategies have been most effective in fostering a culture of engagement at the workplace? Hiyo culture hiyo.
Asante. Kama alivyoongea mwenzangu hapa, engagement ni kitu muhimu sana kwenye organization. Kwa sababu cha kwanza, kazi hazijifanyi zenyewe. Tunategemea wafanyakazi wetu watufanyie kazi. Hivyo, mfanyakazi anawezaje kufanya kazi vizuri? Mfanyakazi ataweza kufanya kazi vizuri kama kutakuwa kuna clear communication, au naweza nikasema kuna direct information anayopewa pale anapoanza kazi. Cha kwanza, aielewe kampuni, nyinyi ni kina nani na mnafanya nini. Baada ya hapo, majukumu yake yawe clear. Ajue kabisa majukumu yangu ni hichi na hichi. Baada ya hapo pia anatakiwa ajue yeye contribution yake ina impact vipi organization. Ile itamfanya awe ana wepesi wa kuperform na anakuwa anajiona kwamba ni a part of the team. Kitu kingine ambacho kina another strategy ambayo tunaitumia sisi ni kuprovide professional development. Mfanyakazi sawa, umeshamwajili, umemuelekeza kazi zake, majukumu yake anayajua, lakini unaweza pia ukampa nafasi ya kwenda kujiongeza kama training. Kuna wahasibu, kuna training za TRA kuhusu masuala ya kodi. Sawa, katika organizations au kampuni, hata kama wewe mwenyewe kiongozi huwezi yani utakuwa na knowledge, lakini wale wafanyakazi wako pia inabidi waongeze knowledge yao kwenye sekta yao ili waweze kuwa bora zaidi, ili uweze kuwategemea. Na kitu kingine, mfanyakazi ambaye amekuwa engaged vizuri, anajua majukumu yake, ni rahisi kummonitor, ni rahisi kumrekebisha pale ambapo anakuwa ameenda sivyo. Kwa hiyo mfanyakazi anapokuwa engaged anakuwa na uhuru na anakuwa anaona ame part of this team. Kwa hiyo anajua ninachokifanya kinaenda kuimpact hivi, inakuza ukubwa wa kampuni. Kwa hiyo na yeye anajiona ana mchango mkubwa, hata kama ni mfagiaji tu. Imagine boss, unaingia ofisini, ofisi yako unakuta chafu, yani ile tayari inakuwa imesha kukata mood, imekutoa moral. Lakini yule anayefagia ofisi yako ukiweza kumweka karibu na akaelewa, kumbe mimi nafagia tu, lakini kusafisha kwangu ofisi kuna maana kubwa sana kwa ajili ya utendaji wanaowasafishia, tayari anakuwa anafanya kazi yake vizuri. Kitu kingine pia, hasa sisi kwenye private sectors, kwenye swala la professional development, unakuta mikataba yetu inakuwa ni ya mwaka, lakini mfanyakazi anapata faraja sana anapoona kwamba kampuni imeniamini enough kuinvesti kwangu. Kwa hiyo ana relax. Unakuta ile kila ikikaribia mkataba kuisha, mtu yuko busy anajaribu kutafuta kazi zingine, lakini anapoona kwamba kama wameweza kuinvesti kwangu, kwa hiyo naye ana relax, anaweza akafanya kazi kwa amani na akaproduce vizuri, kwa sababu anajua as more as I do this, na mimi hapa nazidi, yani ukishika unashikika na unashikiliwa vizuri. Kitu kingine ni ku-acknowledge mfanyakazi kwa mchango wake anaofanya, either ni mdogo au mkubwa. Unaweza ukamu-acknowledge kwa pesa, zawadi, au mbele ya timu yake ukasifia kile kitu ambacho amekifanya. Itamtia moyo na pia itafanya wenzake waone kwamba okay, kumbe tukifanya vizuri kuna jambo zuri litafata. Hiyo pia ina retain wafanyakazi na inawafanya wanakuwa wanafanya kazi kwa ubora zaidi. Kitu kingine, empowering, kuempower wafanyakazi. Tayari mfanyakazi umeshamwajiri, umemfundisha majukumu yake, umempa training opportunities. Hapo sasa it is very easy kwa wewe kusema kwamba hayo ni majukumu yako, unamwachia sasa yeye afanye. Unakuwa huko kwa pembeni unaangalia kwamba utakiwa ufanye 1, 2, 3. Amefanya, unamwachia make decision yeye kama yeye, umuone ufanisi wake. Yani inakuondolea hata wewe ile burden ya kwamba kila saa unakuwa una checking every time inapungua, kwa sababu tayari umemuempower. Ameweza yeye sasa kuendelea kujimweta, kujicontrol, umempa ownership ya ile kazi yake, anaweza aka make decision. Kwa hiyo inakupunguzia hata wewe pilika za hapa na pale, unakuwa tu ni kuapprove ama kumonitor from far na kuangalia kama hivi, kwa sababu tayari unakuwa umeshampa training, anajua jukumu lake, anajua mchango wake. Naweza nikasema kwa kifupi hizo ni baadhi ya strategies ambazo zinasaidia kumfanya mfanyakazi engage vizuri kwenye kampuni na inaleta matokeo mazuri pia.
Thank you. Naomba tumpe makofi jamani. Wangapi wamepata kitu kipya hapo? Okay, so we go and apply it, isn't it? All right. Naomba niende kwa Pamela. Kuna swala la disengaged employees. So how do you approach a disengaged employee? What steps can you take to re-engage them?
Okay. Thank you. So coming to disengaged and engaged employee, I would really like to categorize them generally in 4. We have the actively engaged, we have engaged, we have disengaged, and actively disengaged. For the discussion, I'll go with actively disengaged and disengaged generally, but I know the strategies on how to go about may differ, and especially when it comes to actively disengaged, because at the end of the day may be a very toxic in the organization if not well managed. But the disengaged, it's easier to move them from disengaged to engaged side. And the main approach is to have an open conversation, the open communication. It's very critical to understand, but how would you do that communication? It also depends. You can do it direct, or you can do it through empowered line managers. Assuming as HR you are somewhere, possibly in head office. And then we have for my circumstances, working in a bank, we do have branches, okay? And you don't have HR in each branch, but we believe the line manager is the HR in the branch. So empowering a line manager to handle the engagement is a key. So what are the steps? First is to have that discussion to understand what is the cause of disengagement. And the cause may vary depending on a person, but if you are approaching the bigger group, that's where now the survey gets in, or we call it a social barometer, to check through what are the causes of the general disengagement. But again, at an individual level, as a line manager or as HR, it's purely to have a conversation. And people do differ why they have disengagement. And it could be, it could be lack of training. It could be feel like I'm not appreciated. There's no clear goals. It could be the psychological support. At some point, in most of the cases, it's financial issues. And so you definitely have to work together with that person on how to get out of that. So there's no one particular strategy, but as a step, first is to have a conversation with the person, and secondly now is to solve together, all together. If it's about a clear goals, you ensure there's a clear goal set. If it's about motivations, then it could be not necessarily to be material, not necessarily to be financial, but you could have all other aspects into which you could still reward and recognize. Or rather, if it's material and financial, you also have to work on. So they vary based on the reason, but the main aspect is to know the problem and to tackle it.
What are the main reasons? Tutajia hata moja tu that you feel ndio inasababisha an employee to get disengaged. Just one.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. I can point a clear goals or objective. Kwa sababu when we are saying a person is engaged, we are saying a person is feeling I am part and parcel of the organization. I am that organization. So if a person doesn't have a clear, then you will feel like, okay, I'm here, I'm just doing my responsibility. But even the responsibility not be done exactly, because cannot even link the mission, vision of the organization, and what is doing, cannot link the strategy. If a person doesn't know even the bank's, if it's a bank or the organization strategy, linking it to whatever that person is doing, and it has been well elaborated by our trainer was doing that, it definitely lead to disengaged. So a person who is, I'm coming to work, I'm just doing my responsibility, cannot link to what is expected. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Naomba tumpe makofi yake jamani. Allow me to get back to Sarah. Sarah, you are a recipient of Women in Management Africa Award of 50 women leaders in Africa. That means you've done something. And wakati wanakupa hiyo award, kuna vigezo waliangalia, si ndio? So my second question to you is how do you measure? Sasa wao jinsi walivyomeasure kwamba unafaa. How do you measure employee engagement within your organization?
Thank you. Your question had a very good context. Being a recipient of WIMA, I would say something that I was saying yesterday here: collaboration. I met somebody in a HR summit. Was a once encounter. Was a facilitator at that particular time. She was also doing the same, a first timer. Much later, as we continue to work in human resources spaces, we had an encounter, and I had supported her. She reached out to me and I had supported her on something, and I believe she's the one. So she's never fully said it, because I didn't know how they were able to reach me and nominate me and all that. but she was able to nominate me, and my last employer gave a very good, in terms of reference and the works that we did, specifically on our internship programs that we were running, and very many other transformational leadership works that we did at my last employer, and I think that's what that measured to give me the award, and I appreciate for that, and specifically to be appreciated by another or other women in the same space. So thank you very much. Somehow in life, every day we are being measured. Whether you're at home, you measure your house help, right? How they are faring in terms of the work, responsibilities and duties. Whether it's your kids, how they are faring at school, and at workplace, we do the same. On the part of employee engagement, how do we measure employee engagement? There are very many ways, and each organization tends to use several, and sometimes you do it and you don't know you're doing it, and that you're doing actually, you're measuring employees' engagement. I would say, for example, surveys. I would say most of us here are actually doing it. Either you do it annually or in 2 years, whatever ways. There are several surveys that you do, whether it's annual, there are those which are probation. After probation, we normally do surveys just to understand if our onboarding process was actually a success. In other organizations, we also do the exit interviews, right? Yeah. The data that we get from the exit interviews, what do we use it for? Do we really look at that document? Do we really work on the feedback that we receive? Do we share it with your senior management team? Because that's what should be happening. The SMT should be able to discuss the responses that you have received from your exit staff members. Other ways of measuring employee engagement could be the employee net promoter score that Dorcas had mentioned a little earlier, and some of us have already been using it. There are several communication apps currently. As HRs, we have said, we should be ahead with all the AI and all these other technologies that are available for us. So let us be proactive and be able to use them to get feedback as often as possible. You're doing something small within the organization, you can ask your IT personnel to just send out the forms. It takes 2 minutes to send those the online forms that you can get a quick feedback and really provide a solution that is people-centered. Other ways to measure employee engagement is also on absenteeism. That could be something that would trigger you. So sometimes you don't see it across the organization, but you will see in certain projects, for some of us who work in the development sector, you tend to see a pattern. For certain project staff members are actually absent. What is it? What's going on? How can you actually go in and support? And the team here have shared some of the strategies that you actually can be able to deploy in case your employees are disengaged. The turnover rate. I know the banking sector uses it quite often because for them it's all about money, and the numbers speak, right? I've worked in the banking sector myself and in microfinance. I know how crazy that is. Every month you have to report your turnover. Well, the NGO sectors, maybe we don't do that on a monthly basis. Yes. But for the banking sector, you do it on a monthly basis. And you actually have to write a few strategies that you have in place to ensure that, the turnover is, you have retention programs and so forth. So these are the things that can help you measure employee engagement at workplace. There's the employee satisfaction score, which is what also I think most of us, especially when you're a startup in HR, you definitely tend to use this one more than others. But also you can benchmark yourself with different other organizations looking at different matrix that you have to value yourself with. So there are very many measures that you can actually deploy in an organization. Look at your organization, see what works for you, what is available, and ensure you do it. Now, as much as you measure, learn to ensure that the reports that comes after, you work on them. It's key and important. And the senior management are always disengaged in this particular aspect. They don't even follow up. As HR, you are the one who is leading this agenda. Make sure you actually push it and ensure the results are actually taken care so that you actually are able to resolve the issues within your workplace or your company. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Naomba tumpe makofi yake. Round of applause. You've talked about leaders. Naomba nimpe Gloria tusaidie kujibu hili. How do leaders and managers play a role in keeping employees engaged?
Okay, asante. Viongozi katika organization wana play role kubwa sana. Naweza nikasema una play role yote kufanya wafanyakazi wawe engaged. Kwa cha kwanza una lead by example. Wewe kama kiongozi unakuwa ni mfano wa kuigwa kwa wafanyakazi wako. Kwa sababu ukiwa yani tayari kama kiongozi mwenye tayari sio mfano mzuri, sio rahisi kuwa na timu nzuri. Kwa hiyo cha kwanza ni hicho, unakuwa una lead by example. Tutaongelea attendance kwamba wafanyakazi waingie saa 2, lakini kama wewe mwenye kiongozi, tena nikijiongelea mimi mfano binafsi experience yangu kama mfanyakazi wa kwanza. Kwa hiyo wafanyakazi wote wanakuja wananikuta. Sasa imagine wewe ambaye unawachake, una misbehave, sio rahisi ukawaongoza vizuri. Yani lazima uwe umenyooka. Kama ni kuwai wewe, kama ni mavazi wewe ongoza. Kila kitu lazima wewe ndio wewe umeongoza, hata ikibidi kwenye vitendo sana. Ufanyaji wa kazi, unamfundisha mtu kazi vizuri, unamuelekeza vizuri. Anaona kabisa kwamba these people are serious. We are not here to play games. Tumekuja hapa kufanya kazi moja kwa moja, na yeye anakuwa amenyooka. Kingine pia ni kurecognize effort ya mfanyakazi. Ni jukumu la viongozi kurecognize effort ya mfanyakazi. Hii nimerudia pia kwenye zile strategy, it applies pia na huku. Viongozi ni jukumu kurecognize effort ya mfanyakazi wako. Pale anapokuwa amefanya kitu kizuri, atapongezwa ili pia impe motisha yeye na wenzie katika performance zao. Okay, kitu kingine ni kujenga uaminifu. Wewe kama kiongozi una engage na wafanyakazi wako kwa kujitengenezea uaminifu, kuwapa hali ya kwamba awe unakuwa fair na unamfanya mfanyakazi anakuwa comfortable. Hata kama kuna kitu kinaendelea, anaweza akakuapproach, akakwambia, akakuelezea, najua kabisa bosi naweza nikamfuata, nikamuelezea jambo langu, akanisikiliza. Kuliko ile unakuwa ukali unakuwa ukipitiliza, ukipita kwenye makweli watu wenda wanajificha. Sasa ile inaleta kitu kibaya, kwa sababu unakuwa unaogopwa, utaanza kupewa excuses za uongo, utadanganywa, mama leo anaumwa siwezi kuingia ofisini. Ni kwa sababu wewe mwenyewe hauko approachable. Mtu anaweza akawa na jambo la kawaida kabisa, nataka aombe half day akafanye kitu chake, lakini kwa sababu wewe ni mkali, mtu anabidi sasa atengeneze excuse ili kuescape. Kitu kingine pia kutengeneza uaminifu kwa mfanyakazi. Viongozi inabidi tuwe accountable. Sawa, wewe ni kiongozi, lakini sometimes pia tunakosea. Unapokuwa umekosea, kuliko kutupa lawama kwa mfanyakazi, ni bora acknowledge ile kosa lako, be accountable. Ataona kumbe kukosea ni kitu cha kawaida. Lakini ukianza na wewe kuwa unakona, Mfanyakazi anaweza akaharibu kitu, akafanya jambo ambalo likawa ni baya, lakini akaamua naye kukwepa, kukataa. Mwisho wa siku mnakuwa yani accountability katika organization ni kitu kizuri sana, hasa sisi viongozi tukianza kuwa accountable, then inakuwa ni rahisi kwa mfanyakazi naye kuwa accountable pale ambapo anakuwa amekosea, unakuwa unamrekebisha. Okay. Kitu kingine ambacho sisi viongozi tunatakiwa tufanye ni kutoa clear directions. Wafanyakazi wapo, wanafanya kazi. Hata hapa madam amezungumza, kukiwa kuna clear directions ni rahisi mfanyakazi kuengage. Kwa hiyo ni jukumu la managers kuwa una provide clear directions na communication kwa wafanyakazi wako. Mtu ajue majukumu yake, anatakiwa kufanya nini, a feel a part of the team, na ajue kwamba mchango wake una impact gani kwenye organization. Ni jukumu la kiongozi kumdirect, kumuongoza, kuongea naye, kumuelezea. Hata kama na ukiwa direct, it means hata monitoring yako inakuwa nyepesi. Kwa sababu ukishampa mtu directions, kwa hiyo ina maana akienda opposite, unaweza ukamrudisha back on track. Lakini kama hakuna clear directions, hapo sasa inakuwa ni hali ambayo sintofahamu. Mtu ndio hivyo anakuwa disengaged, baadaye mtu anaona kwamba tu niingie nika check in, nifanye kazi kidogo, nijibu email 2-3, huko yuko Instagram, huko, yani inakuwa ni hali ambayo haifai. Lakini kama kiongozi unakuwa umetoa clear directions, mtu anajua role yake ni nini, anajua responsibilities zake, anajua impact yake kwenye organization, kwa hiyo automatically mambo yanakuwa mnafanya mambo ambayo yamenyooka. Asante.
Thank you so much. Naomba tumpe makofi. So basically in summary, be an example. Si ndio jamani? Kama ni kuwahi, wewe ndio wewe wa kwanza. Kama wanasema kwamba masuala ya integrity, then you should be number one. Thank you so much, Glory, for that. Naomba nirudi kwa Pamela. You've worked in the banking industry for a very long time, and what are the biggest challenges that you faced in maintaining employee engagement, especially in the hybrid or remote work setups?
Thank you. Well, yeah, and especially after the COVID era, that's when we had to have an hybrid, but also the work remotely setup. So there are a couple of challenges that I've faced, and personally, but also from a management perspective looking at. One being the communication barrier and concentration. And that has been happening, and we are the witness, where, for example, you could have a virtual meeting, and you are doing a meeting, there's no concentration, someone is doing something else. One thing you know is you mention a name, and a person says, sorry, I was speaking on mute. But in reality, you realize it's not like they were speaking on mute, they were not concentrating. So concentration by itself now, definitely a person doesn't get what was expected, doesn't get a clear expectation, and so at the end of the day ending up disengaged because cannot deliver what was intended. But secondly, as a challenge that I've faced has been the managing of the productivity. And that has been as well, you could link it in a concentration as well, but also because of lack of being close, where you can ask for clarity, you know, just close phone call away, or rather it's just an open door, you open and you ask. A person can continue doing something, but not in a proper as expected. And so the performance is a bit astray, but again, measuring the same. But the mitigating factor has been to ensure there is a virtual meeting, or rather a regular face-to-face meeting, just to ensure the setup is clear, the understanding of the expectation and the objectives to be cleared. But the other thing is that I've also noticed is the burnout, sincerely. And especially on some of the departments, but also the senior management. Working at home, working remotely, you find yourself, you do more extra than expected. So a person now doesn't have a work-life balance. You call a person a meeting, is in a meeting, or a person who was working. I was checking one of my GM, the finance guy, and was, okay, you know, Pamela, I was working up to, I worked up at 3 until this morning I was preparing the board pack. I was like, but why? You know, so it goes extra than expected. And the mitigating factor has been as well to ensure we speak to them, ensuring they're balancing, but also more on a checkup. You know, they are human. We wish them to have the balance with the family, but as well just to ensure, yeah. So in a way, it saves the traffic jam you could use. You get extra work to do, but balancing is also very critical. So those are the samples.